Welcome to episode 65 of Anchored in Education. I'm E. Scott England, and Anchored in Education is the podcast dedicated to all things education. Educators across the world routinely engage in conversations surrounding fundamentals, concepts, and new ideas that improve this great profession. Sometimes we agree, other times we disagree. But at the end of the day, we are all anchored in education. I want to take just a moment and play a quick clip for you.
If someone would have told me that I wasn't going to go back to school on that day back in March, I would have done things so differently. I would have hugged my teachers and told them thank you before I left. I would have spent more time with my friends. I would have played that PE game more enthusiastically, took that assignment more seriously, thoroughly enjoyed my last lunch in the cafeteria, went to more school functions, and so much more. I would have taken things more slowly and would have enjoyed every last moment. You see, this experience has taught me to never take time for granted and to never complain about school again, and to always be grateful for every moment you are given. This has been a hard time to wrap my head around, but I can guarantee one thing. I will come out a better person and a better student after this is over.
The person reading that is Bella Trupiano, an 8th grader who had her 8th grade year uprooted by coronavirus. This message, written by Bella, was posted on Facebook and shared by her mother over a month ago. A friend of mine took a screenshot and sent it to me, knowing how much I appreciate hearing from students. I immediately shared it with many colleagues. In fact, I sent the entire message to my staff in both buildings. I think it is important that we remember that students were just as impacted as we were by these disruptions. We often believe they do not care that the last 9 weeks of school was taken from them, but on a whole, we are majorly wrong. I then went one step further and made contact with Bella through her mom. And guess what? She's on the podcast today. She is the first student to be a guest on Anchored in Education, and I hope far from the last. But I think you will find that Bella is the perfect student to be the inaugural student guest. Bella, welcome to Anchored in Education.
Hello.
We are excited to have you, and I don't know that in our previous communications if I had shared this with you, but you are actually our first student to join Anchored in Education.
Yes, you did tell me that, and that's really exciting.
Well, it is exciting, too, because we have actually, we've spent several episodes throughout over our year of being broadcast talking about student voice. In fact, I had a couple authors on that wrote a book all about student voice, and so we recognize how important it is. And so now it's just kind of putting my money where my mouth is and getting a student on here, and I honestly cannot think of a better student to make a first appearance than you. And,
thank you.
And I think that I think my listeners are going to discover why, and we're going to get to that in just a second. But typically we allow our first-time guests the opportunity to explain how you became anchored in education, which typically asks educators what drew them into the profession, and if anyone was an inspiration, and so on. But you're in the unique position in that you're the first student on the podcast, so you're not really anchored in education other than a student. But we still want to find out a little bit more about you and how you are making the most of being anchored in education as a student.
Well, education has been a big part of who I am. I've absolutely loved school and any opportunity to get to learn. My parents chose for me to go to St. Joseph Catholic School here in Olney, Illinois. It is a small Catholic school, and for me, this has been one of the greatest choices that they have ever made for me and my brothers.
Okay.
My school has given me so many unique opportunities, and I'm forever grateful to have gotten the opportunity to attend this school the last 10 years.
Yeah.
But getting back to the point, I love to learn, and I've known that since I was young. Education for me has a great meaning, and I feel that education is one of the greatest gifts a person can be given.
Well, for a podcast that has educators listening to it, that's probably the best answer we could possibly give them. And we talked a little bit before we started recording, but let's revisit. I asked what your post-secondary aspirations were. Do you mind sharing a little bit about what you're shooting for?
Yeah, I want to be an attorney. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, that has became a recent goal of mine. Um, I used to want to be a doctor, but then my aunt has been going through some law related things, and I thought, well, maybe an attorney. I don't know. I just kind of like that stuff.
Yeah.
So maybe an attorney would be that's my goal, I guess. And I want to go into medical law where you can fight on behalf of the patient. But we'll just see where life takes me.
Yeah, and I think that is a great outlook on it. And I don't think that we've mentioned yet, but you are wrapping up, or you have wrapped up your 8th grade year, and you'll be a high schooler next year.
Yeah.
So we're actually, and we'll get more into, kind of how you closed out your 8th grade year, because I bet when you started 8th grade, you did not envision this happening.
No, never.
So,
Never.
but before that, let's go back to April 20th. You had an emotional post that I have actually featured a snippet on Anchored in Education before.
Hmm.
And so we also heard it again in the opening. We're going to get to that post, but before we get there, I want to go back to a post written by you and shared by your mom on March 31st about your family's restaurant. So,
Yes.
for my listeners, your family owns Joe's Pizza in Olney, Illinois.
Yes.
And you mention in this post the absence of the chatter, the laughs, the smiles, even the babies crying, which may be the first time that somebody has ever said they miss babies crying, but
Yeah.
that's another story. So, how different is the family restaurant during these times of closure?
It has been very different. Trying to explain to someone who isn't in the restaurant industry during this time is kind of hard, but there is just this emptiness. When people dine in, you are given the opportunity to interact with them and their children, but now since that was taken away from us, we don't get that time. Also, when you look out and see an empty dining room, it is just kind of sad, simply sad. Yeah.
Yeah, empty dining rooms are not good for the restaurant business.
No.
And so, are you still offering takeout?
Yes, takeout, delivery, and curbside.
Okay, so you do get to see. I'm sure that you've got a lot of regulars, and probably just a lot of community members that's thankful that you're still
Yes,
offering food.
yes, yes.
All right, great. So let's talk about that post on April 20th. And actually, this is now I'm going to go back to the middle of March when we first found out schools would be closed from March 17th until March 30th. What were your first thoughts?
I was shocked.
Huh.
Completely shocked. There had been chatter and joking that it would happen, but I never ever would have thought that they would have to close schools. I remember my mom walking around the living room in utter shock when we heard the news. It was just crazy, I guess. The whole coronavirus in general was something that I never thought would have been in this country, let alone my community. So, yes, I was very shocked and could not believe that they were going to close schools.
Yeah, and so when we entered, the first couple days, did it feel more like a snow day, kind of like a celebratory thing? And
Yeah, yeah, it did.
okay, and when you left, did you think like, okay, 2 weeks, then we'll be back?
Yes, I was like, I guess it's not that big of a deal. But as those 2 weeks went on, I kind of was like, I don't know if we're gonna go back.
Yeah,
But I still had hope.
absolutely. I think we all did. So, as we neared the end of that first round of closures, it was announced that schools would remain closed until April 30th. Walk us through how your thoughts began to change on being away from school. And had you by this time started to think, hey, maybe we're not going to return to school this school year?
Um, I did start thinking that, and I did see it coming. So many people had talked that we wouldn't go back to school, so I had a pretty good feeling that it was going to happen. Um, I remember my mom watching that press conference, and it was me. We were doing a puzzle. We were in the middle of doing a puzzle, and Governor J.B. Pritzker said that he was going to suspend all contact teaching for the remainder of the school year.
Yeah.
And hearing those words sort of made me numb. It was like, yeah, I'm not going to get that closure, that end of the year time as an eighth grader in those last moments at school. We were going to miss out on our eighth grade trip to Alabama to space camp,
Oh,
the school
wow.
dance, my chance to go to the regional science fair, our eighth grade breakfast before school, trip to the Mexican restaurant for lunch in honor of our last Spanish class. Something I was very excited about was getting to eat with my class at my family's restaurant, Joe's Pizza.
Yeah.
We had a superlative award ceremony my class had planned, graduation, and so much more.
And then just like that, after simple words on a press conference, that vanished. And
Mhm.
I mean, so it seems now, as we're talking today, that I mean, you have maybe a little bit more positive attitude going on about it.
Uh-huh.
But I mean, when you heard that and you started thinking about all the things that you were going to miss, I mean, walk us through your emotions.
I was sad, honestly. I was sad. Especially I had a class of 17 kids that I've grown up with since
Yeah.
kindergarten. So, I know, like, going to St. Joe, like, that, like, the end of your time is, like, a big deal, like, a really big deal. And so, I don't know, it was just sad.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that many are right there with you. So, of course, before April 30th could arrive, we just talked about the final announcement that came that we're not going to reopen to the rest of the school year. I mean, you obviously were not prepared to receive the news, and you're going to miss out on a lot of the activities that you've mentioned.
Uh-huh.
I mean, was there any thought like, okay, maybe by summer they'll open things back up and we'll get to have some of it then?
Um,
Or did you just think it was
I
done?
I'm not gonna lie, I thought it was done,
All right.
honestly. Um,
Yeah.
like, and I mean, still, like, I don't know. I I did see it coming, I guess. Um, I don't know.
Well, actually, I mean, your thought process is much like yours. In fact, I had, or like mine, I had the opportunity to sit in on another gentleman's podcast, and he asked me a very similar question, and I thought about it, and I said, you know what, honestly, I don't know,
Yeah,
and
that's how I feel. That's how my response was, just like, I don't know.
yeah, and I wanted to give just a great answer and everything, and I said, you know what? Honestly, I sit here a lot of times at my desk and I stare at maybe my email and whatever press conference, and I just think like, what am I supposed to be doing during all this? I mean,
Honestly,
we're
yeah.
not prepared for it.
No, nobody is.
No.
Nobody.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, we've talked a little bit about two inspirational posts you've had. I
Uh-huh.
believe, if I saw correctly, that it has inspired you to start your own blog. And if I'm not mistaken, it is called Life in Quarantine. What is your hopes for not only blogging but further writing ventures you may pursue?
Yeah, actually it is called Being Bella, a
Being
log into
okay.
my not so perfect life. Life in Quarantine was actually the title of my first post.
Oh, okay.
Uh, I decided to start it to pursue my passion in writing and for kids and people to see that we don't have perfect lives, especially in this time in quarantine. I absolutely love to write, like you've heard,
Yeah.
and have really started to embrace this passion and gift that I've been given these past few years. Like I also said, my goal is to become an attorney, and I hope that my gift of writing will somehow be able to take me far through college and then into my future years of law if my dreams and hopes were to come true.
Yeah, well, I definitely think that you have a gift. How long have you enjoyed writing?
Um, I've liked to write since I was little,
Okay.
but I've loved to start writing. Like, I think it was last year. Like, I don't know.
Okay.
I just kind of like, I don't know. I just started to love it.
Yeah. All right, Bella, I'd like to spend a few minutes talking about remote learning. So, in all my time in education, I've never seen anything like this. So, I know you haven't either. How was remote learning for you?
It was a lot to get used to. I wasn't prepared, nor were anyone else coming into this, and it was just a lot. I honestly did not like it at all, I'm not gonna lie. But given the circumstances, I had no choice. I'm a person who loves to ask questions. I'm always curious and want to know the hows and whys to all sorts of things.
Yeah.
So for me, that was one of the main challenges. If I had a question, I would have to send an email or Google Hangout or something along those lines.
Mm-hmm.
And then I would have to wait for a response, which for me wasn't the greatest because when I want an answer, I want it back pretty quick because I'm not very patient.
Right.
But it was also for me a lot to keep track of. I was scared that I was accidentally missing assignments and such on my Google Classroom stream, and I also felt that having to teach some of the material to myself was kind of challenging. All in all, it went over well, but I would much rather have been back at the classroom, learning in the classroom environment.
Yeah, sure. You and many others. Okay, so this kind of leads me into wrapping up. And before we go, we talk about the student voice and how important it is. And so this is kind of your opportunity here as a student on what kind of advice can you give schools for preparing for remote learning in the future if we ever had to go back to it? And then also, what final piece of advice would you give students?
So if I had to give any advice to schools in the future for remote learning, first I would tell them please do not throw a week's assignment at kids all at once
Okay.
unless you absolutely have to. I know that some of my teachers did that and it was very overwhelming. Posting the assignments for that specific day on that day, for lack of better words, works better and it is less overwhelming and confusing.
Okay.
At least it worked better for me.
Sure.
Another tip of advice would be to just simply not get frustrated at their students for missing assignments and such. I know most teachers are very understanding, but just know that it is a lot to navigate through. Being positive, giving encouragement, telling them that they aren't the only one in this situation, and other uplifting praises could be a great alternative. I hope that we don't have to go back through remote learning, but time will tell.
Time will certainly tell. Those are some very wise words. Bella, thank you so much for agreeing to come on Anchored in Education today.
Thank you.
To me, Bella seems wise beyond her years. Before I wrap up today, don't forget to subscribe to Anchored in Education on whatever platform you get your podcasts. Also, if you could share it with your network on whatever social media platforms you use, that would also be appreciated. I truly believe we could learn a lot if we took the time to talk to students, listen to them, engage them in deeper levels of conversations. Now you can actually find Isabella on Twitter at IsabellaTrup23. She's new to Twitterverse, but I can only imagine it is a matter of time before her wise words are yet again educating the educators. Mike Lubefeld, Nick Poliak, and PJ Capozzi have all joined the podcast talking about how important it is to listen to student voice. There is a reason the subtitle of their book by the same name is From Invisible to Invaluable. We must quit thinking that we know it all and we know it best just because we went to school for a post-secondary or advanced degree. I would argue that students are more perceptive to what is working for them and others. Want to know how a change in curriculum is going? Ask students. Want to see if a schedule works, a room layout is convenient? Want to know more about a new technology and if it's working in the classroom? You guessed it. Ask students. I was super proud of my state of Illinois for including several students in the Remote Learning Task Force. Mike Lubefeld was on and anchored live talking more about it a while back. It is the smartest thing, really. I mean, why would we not get input from the ones who it will impact the most? I will be the first to admit that in the rush to create a plan, I did not seek input from students. Since we implemented remote learning, though, I have sought out student voice so we can make adjustments and we make the right ones. It is important that teachers are comfortable in remote learning, but we cannot simply design schools around teachers. Schools are there for students. And together, at the end of the day, we are all anchored in education.